Hi there. Been a bit busy at work. We have a major conference coming up in Shenzhen in China, and we just did a large announce with the Raspberry Pi guys. So I haven't had much of a chance to play with the garage door project. Plus, what I'd run into was what seemed to be a bit, to me at the time, a bit of a random uh, bug, and I didn't really understand it, and I didn't think I have time to sit down and work out what the problem was, and so I put it aside. And if you remember the last couple of videos, I was working on adding an I2C port expander to my garage door project, and then writing up the classes that would wrap that. So that's what I was sort of working on when I had a bit of time. And then finally, a day or two ago, I actually had a chance to sit down and take a look at this bug that I was suffering. And what I want to do is show you what I found. So now we're going to turn on the Galileo by plugging the power in, and we're just going to wait until it shows up under the Galileo watcher and is running. So now that everything's running, what we can do is just launch this, and I'll get prompted for my admin credentials to deploy. And now we're deploying the app, and you'll notice that nothing's actually happening. So let's stop this and talk about why. So once I realized it wasn't displaying, the first thing that I did was I stepped back to my existing Adafruit library, and I loaded that, and then I ran that to see what would happen. So let's run this, and let's enter my logon details. And now we've deployed it, and we can see that it's running successfully. So knowing that this was running, what I then did was to stop this and go back to my other project, and now I ran this. And now this is displaying. So what I was wondering was what's going on? What is happening during the display that's causing this problem? So let me stop this, and we can start looking at what the issue was. So I loaded up my logic analyzer because clearly what I wanted to do, I knew something was happening in the instructions that were going out to the ST7565. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to look at what was happening for the Adafruit library and compare that to what was happening with the U8glib version. So I've already run this, so let me load the Adafruit capture, and we can look in here and we can see that, here's the SPI bus information, the information coming out from the Galileo on the SPI bus, the SPI clock. If we zoom in, you can see the clock pulses that are occurring, and we can see what's being written out to it. But I wanted to get a full view to see what was actually happening with the display. So I added two other lines, A0 and reset. A0 lets me look to see when data is actually being written versus commands. And so if you look here, you can see that at this point we're now writing some data to the actual device. So I'm going to hand over some data, and we're taking A0. On reset, this tells me when we're resetting the device. So I'm having a look here, and I can see what's going on. That enable is being dragged low appropriately. This little blip here is something that I actually put in the code because my logic analyzer was having a problem. It wouldn't decode the SPI information apparently without the enable bus changing state at some point. So I just artificially drove it high. And we can see a reset occurs. We can see that there's a bunch of commands that go out to the device because A0 is low. And then we start sending our data out. And we can see this coming from the various clock signals that went out to it as we were driving data. So that all made sense. So I flipped over to the U8glib product, and let me have a look at that. And here you can see I have the same start. I have my little blip. I'm getting reset driven low. In fact, the library's driving reset low twice. I don't know why that is. I still haven't gone in to have a look at that. But basically, it's getting ready, setting itself up, it's writing data. And as far as I could tell, when I looked at these commands here that are being sent down the SPI wire, the initialization routine is happening correctly. And so I'm seeing the right set of information. But clearly, we could see when I ran the app from a cold boot that nothing actually happened. And this was the sort of the trick that was the bug that went on. When I ran this in the warm boot phase, or the warm start phase, so I ran the Adafruit libraries first, then I ran the U8glib demo, I saw this work. So I thought, well, let's give it a try and let's see what happens when I do it from cold. And so now I started up a complete cold boot, and then I ran the U8glib. Now, if you notice here, the difference between the warm and the cold boot is I'm not actually getting anything happening on enable, and I'm not getting anything happen on reset. And reset is important because as you read the data sheet, if you do not cycle the reset appropriately, the display simply won't initialize, and that's what I was seeing. And so now this gave me the insight that I needed to go and actually have a look into the code to find what was the actual problem. And so when I went back in, I said, well, what's happening during that reset? Well, I'm sending out that 163. It's got to be happening during the initialization routine at some point. And so I went and did just a complete search across my project looking for a NIT. And as I started, scrolling through this, I was like, oh yes, okay. This message is sent during the initialization process. So if we went and did a look for where that is used all the time, now I can see that this is actually being done in the hardware SPI and the software SPI cases. And so if we look at the software SPI, let's pick the actual Galileo one. What was happening here was I did not have this line in there. All I did was have this line in there. Now I got that from a different version. So here is the Arduino, straight Arduino version. And so it didn't have that pin mode. It didn't have that assign pin output high picked. All it had was this. And so I didn't see that particular case in there. And once I started looking in and thinking about it, it's like, oh, this is the difference. What's going on here? Let's uncomment this and let's go have a look at that actual routine. And what I'm doing here is I'm setting the pin modes. This is why it was working in the warm case, because when I ran the Adafruit library with the ST7565 hooked up the same way, I'd already set the pin mode. And so stopping the app and restarting the app, the Galileo is already configured to enable me to drive the pins. In the cold boot state, when it came up, what it would do is bring itself up, but now all the pins have been set as inputs. And of course, I can't drive the output pin at that point. So what I needed to do was to just simply go in here and add this. Now, while I was doing that, I noticed that this line actually seems to not be needed. And so I just comment that out. Because if we remembered looking at that method here, we're setting the pin to output and we're also setting it high, which is exactly what this digital write is doing. It's setting the chip select pin, which is the enable pin, high. So what I'll do is I'll keep playing with the libraries and just see whether or not I need that. But that was an interesting case of finding a difference in the Galileo and probably in Arduino's as well, between the warm and the cold boot experience. In the next videos, I think I have pretty much everything set up. So in my next video, I'm going to take you through the library structure that I set up and how I deal with the I2C port expander. Thanks for watching.